How's it going, folks? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we're looking at the breakout Netflix hit His House, following a refugee couple that make a harrowing escape from war-torn Sudan, but then struggle to adjust to their new life in England, finding an evil lurking beneath the surface. You know by now when it comes to Netflix originals is that they are pretty hit or miss quality-wise, with the bulk just not being very good. I can count the number of times that I've finished one and been like, yeah, that was a Netflix movie. Fortunately, every now and then they actually put out something worthwhile, and that is certainly the case for His House. It's got an intriguing story that kind of keeps you in the dark for the most part of what's really going on, and starts off in a place as more of a socio-political tale about the difficulties and hardships our couple faces trying to assimilate into the very different English culture. But then things turn more supernatural and scary once strange things start going on in their new home. That all ties back into that kind of mystery behind why it's all happening in the first place. So that's what we're looking at today, breaking down the story along with the characters' evolving arcs, just what the monstrous Apeth is after, along with explaining the ending and what it means. We follow Bol carrying a young girl Naya, assumedly his daughter, clutching a blonde baby doll, weakly shuffling across barren land. Coming to a town area, there's a bunch of people getting into the back of a truck. Bol's partner Rial tells the girl she'll protect her as the truck roars to life. Their journey continues onto the water, treading the harsh seas in the dark of night. Suddenly there's a loud whir and the engine dies, seeing a flash of Naya in the water. Bol then wakes up sometime later in a facility in England, and she asks what he was dreaming about, lying their wedding day. Her joking, well, that explains the screams. Oh, marital bliss. Having escaped their war-torn country, they are now refugees, called in by an employee to come to the gym. Their roommate tells them to not get their hopes up, as they'll most likely be sent back to die just like the bastards always do, establishing how tenuous their newfound freedom really is. But the couple stay strong, clutching hands, and in another room, two dudes aggressively subdue another. They meet a council, hearing the woman whispering about how they lost their child last year, as we saw in that brief flash of Naya in the water. The main man congratulates them as they are being released from detention, the couple smiling and laughing in relief. He clarifies that this is bail, as they are considered asylum seekers and are not proper citizens yet. And until then, they will have to abide by strict rules like weekly check-ins and aren't allowed to work, along with given a measly stipend of 74 pounds a week to live off of. If they fail to stick to the conditions, they will be sent back to Sudan. Jeez, no pressure. We are good people, Bol offers, but he specifies that it's not about that, just that they have to follow the rules. They're then escorted on a lengthy bus ride long into the next morning, and pretty much dumped at a modest rundown neighborhood of simple townhouses. The guy literally just tossing their bag of stuff and driving off without a word. Thanks for the warm welcome there, guy. Another employee of the government, Mark, comes out and hands them a box of supplies showing off the place, deeming it a palace. All for them, he says jealously, as normally there's twice as many people in half the amount of space. Yeesh. There's a pretty exhaustive list of rules here too, like no pets, no parties, no games, and no balls. What, I can't have a tennis ball? What is the problem with that? There's also some electrical issues with the lighting to tend to, and the place is definitely in need of some cleaning up. Bol opening an empty pizza box and is greeted by bugs having taken over the remnants inside. Yummy. He signs the proper forms for the house, the dude calling his signature confident, Bol bringing up that he used to work in a bank. Rial is taken aback, asking if this really is all for them, and he scoffs, yeah, all of it, saying it's even bigger than his house, believing that they are gonna be all right and fit right in. Considering this a fresh start, Bol is confident that they're not going back, the guy encouraging him, that's a spirit, be one of the good ones. See, we already had that come up a bunch, probably maybe something wrong with that. Now alone, Bol laughs, sitting on the bed getting teary-eyed and whimpering, overwhelmed that they made it here and to their new life. Lying on the floor together as they're accustomed to, they are both thankful. They're born again, Rial agrees, although things aren't entirely so positive after all. That night, Bol hears a female humming, which sounds like it's coming from inside the walls, and another loud bang sends him into a PTSD-fueled panic, hearing what must be shouting related to his journey, and covers his ears to calm his nerves until the screaming fades away. There's more humming, then odd clicking sounds, and he gets right up to the wall, hearing a loud thump that startles him, then strangely hears garbled voices, and crouches down, peering into a hole in the wall. He feels around inside, and Naya briefly appears behind him. A crow flies out of the hole and flies off, Bol mumbling, this is a strange country. Yeah, you got crows in the walls, it's standard in England. England to my understanding. Rial finds him the next morning already hard at work fixing the place up, and sees amongst the items in a basket Naya's doll. Wonder what that's about. Initially, it seems the main goal of Bull is to fit into their new home, attempting a friendly wave at the neighbor who just stares at him lifelessly. Nice to meet you too, lady. He stops by a church, and assuming he's a refugee, a guy invites him in and has a box of stuff for him. The group is watching some football, soccer, as we know, what are we stupid Americans, and Bull even joins in on their chant about player Peter Crouch. He later talks to his wife about this experience, and she, while amused by his attempt to fit in, thinks it's the worst song she's ever heard. Certainly in a playful manner. Bull is awoken later that night to more thumps from the walls and what sounds like footsteps coming up the stairs. He goes to investigate, seeing nothing out of the ordinary beyond a light on in the main room. He tries flipping the switch, but nothing happens. The wallpaper then peels off in a sheet, exposing a gnarled black surface behind it and covering another hole. He grips a wire of some kind and starts pulling on it, and in the process knocks the entire place's power out. A strange figure appears behind him. He keeps pulling for quite some time, like it won't ever end, and the line morphs into appearing to be covered in seaweed. Finally reaching the end, it's Naya's doll attached, as though it's the ghost of the girl starting to make its presence known. Mine! This sends him into a wallpaper peeling rampage, hearing more hollow spots in the walls. In the morning, she finds the room in tatters, wallpaper in a pile on the floor. A voice calls out, "Mommy!" And since Bull isn't around, she sets about sweeping up the mess. Opening a closet door, it's quite bright inside, seeing a Toyota truck stuffed with frightened and forlorn-looking children, now both experiencing these strange visions, obviously fueled by their journey here. She decides to leave the house for the first time by herself and takes a walk to the nearby hospital, winding up at a dead end where a kid is playing with a soccer ball, sending her back the other way in confusion. She comes around the corner to the same kid, but now out here, which is definitely odd for sure. A kind of embodiment of how out of place she feels in her new surroundings. Fearing that she's already lost, she approaches a group of black kids and asks for their help to find Church Street, but they're more insulting than helpful, making fun of her accent, saying that they can't understand her. And all three kids give wildly different directions. But the others agree with the final bro's assessment. She thanks them in her native language, and they just laugh at her, telling her to go back to Africa as they only speak English here. Geez, dang jerk hooligan kids. Another representation of how out of place that she feels here, thinking people with the same skin color as her would be helpful, but they're just jerkasses. She makes it to the clinic, and the woman is at least a little nicer, complimenting her necklace, which Rial says she got from her daughter. Her relating as she has daughters that she calls a handful, not knowing that Rial's is gone. She notices the marks on her face, telling her that they're pretty. She says that she's had them since she was a little girl, while the others on the arm she gave herself, when she found her family butchered, which is certainly quite brutal, helping us understand the violence in her country. Filling in the situation they were fleeing from, she reveals that where she's from, there are two rivaling tribes killing each other. Depending on which one you belong to, you mark yourself. So she marked herself with both, and essentially survived by belonging nowhere. Even in her home country, she still felt out of place, never being able to call anywhere really hers. She returns home and takes a seat on the floor in the main room, and is greeted by a male voice telling her to come. Seeing her apples have fallen out of the bag, one rolling right up to her, hearing "come again," accompanied by more dissonant voices. Bull finally comes back, her with dinner ready, and he apologizes for being late. She's a bit annoyed, but he's happy that she went outside, calling it wonderful, but suggests that next time they can use the table. Another step in their assimilation into society or fitting in with the norms of their new home, which also includes using silverware rather than their fingers, but Rial doesn't like it, complaining that it makes everything taste like metal, but he assures her that she'll get used to it. He's positive that they'll thrive here as there are jobs and they have an actual chance, beaming that they could start a family. But she deflects his extreme positivity, bringing up point blank what she thinks is responsible for the sudden odd events in their house, recounting a story that her mother told her. In their village, there was once an honorable but poor man who wanted a home of his own. He wanted it so badly that he began to steal from others, and one day he stole from an old man who lived by the river, perhaps in a van down by the river. No, sorry, probably not. He was unaware that this man was actually an Apeth Apeth or Night Witch, and he didn't know that when he got the house that he was after, the Apeth would live there too. Before long, the walls would whisper spells of the witch, and from the shadows the dead would come, and the Apeth would never relent until he had consumed the man entirely. She feels the Apeth has arisen from the ocean and followed them here, and this whole story must have a connection to our couple being punished in a sense, but we don't quite understand the context of why at this point. She whispers that it spoke to her, telling her that they don't belong here, and said that if they leave and repay their debt, it will lead them back to Naya. Not quite believing in this supernatural curse as she does, he utters that she's gone, and she responds in her native language that the sea took her. He asks her to speak in English, yelling she's dead, and they have grieved enough, positive that there is no Night Witch, angrily returning to eating in silence. She knows Bull too well, and that he's obviously overcompensating for his own fears as well as the thought of losing their fresh start, going on that she had convinced herself that it was a dream, imagining things that aren't there, but now that she's looked into his eyes, knows that he's a liar, meaning that deep down he too knows something otherworldly is going on here. Just doesn't want to admit it. Don't blame him. You know, you move into a new house and you got a Night Witch in the walls. It's definitely inconvenient. Back to tearing off the wallpaper, a door creaks open, but it doesn't stop him. Then hearing a female sigh that begins to hum, joined by a male voice, he spots the quite different looking Naya, eerily shouting, "Mama!" She is then found sitting on the ground rocking back and forth, stabbing at the floor with a knife, donned in a pretty creepy distorted skull mask, and appears again lunging, the knife landing right by his legs. He turns on the lights and she's gone, now knowing for sure that it's her voice they've been hearing. He runs outside in terror, seeing their neighbor with her cat, and puts on an uneasy smile, staring back into the darkness. Obviously more than a bit shaken after that experience. You sure you don't got ghosts, bro? Rial startles him and based on his state of mind knows that he saw it, and in a closet finds her doll on the ground, and he thinks that he has the answer. They need to destroy everything connected to Naya, thinking that they have been cursed. He collects everything that they have and burns it, leaving only one last object to destroy, Rial's precious necklace from her. She begs Indinka to not make her give it up, and he callously rips it off her neck and throws it in the fire. He continues to desperately cling on to their new lives, going to the mall to shop for new clothes, and looking a bit out of sorts. He's drawn to a banner of a white model on the wall wearing the same shirt that he was looking at, but picks it up anyway, seeing it is now changed into a mural of his whole perfect white-ass family. I mean, gingers and everything, you don't get much more white than that. Another kind of representation of how out of control fitting in around here is starting to feel. Back at the wall, he's digging around the hole and cuts his hand on a wire, but won't let anything slow him down, and gets the lights working in the house once again. But Rial is on a whole other wavelength, hearing her whispering he doesn't want you to go, asking the spirit of Naya to speak with him, and he enters finding her sitting at the table alone. He's adamant to keep up appearances at dinner time, sitting at the table and using silverware, forcing their evolution from what they know, again, to assimilate to the norm here. By the same token, he doesn't think that it's healthy for her to be dwelling here with her thoughts, and wants her to do something constructive and maybe make some friends. She argues that they're not like them. We can be, he retorts. It's starting to come to a head here rather than where they started at. She considers she is mad after everything they've been through and seeing what men can do, but bravely asserts that it's not bumps in the night or ghosts that scares her, and believes that she can get Naya back, who says she should be afraid of him. To try to defuse the situation, he grabs her hand, calling this their home, but she obviously doesn't feel the same, pulling away and using her fingers rather than using the fork to eat with, which he sticks to, and representing his ideal new life starting to fall apart, she's suddenly gone, a crumbling wall behind him, and he finds himself back in the middle of the sea, drifting away, it seems. He hears a male voice speaking Dinka, and surveys his surroundings, spotting someone appearing out on the horizon. He looks down, and there's piles of bodies right under the water, sending him reeling back as more corpses emerge from the fog. He awakens from the nightmare, a gaunt figure walking from the corner, and when turning on the lights, it's gone, almost specifically making it seem like these creatures and spirits can only be seen in the dark. But they're not gone, that is, seeing footprints appear on the floor walking right past him, hearing Naya chiming in that she's cold. He turns out the lights, and when surveying the room, comes to a corpse zombie guy. Ah, lights on, lights on! He hears the voice of a man asking for help, and then Naya shouting that she can't swim. He then hears her in the other room calling for her mama. This time she switches off the lights, and more spirit zombie guys appear. She climbs up top of the group with the knife, and goes for his throat, while Bull struggles to reach the light switch and finally gets it, everyone then out of sight, leaving him terrified terrified and hyperventilating. Now knowing with absolute certainty the voices and Naya sightings are coming from spirits that are living within the walls, he tries to stand his ground against the spirits, first whispering, "This is my house," then gets agitated, yelling for them to get out. Again, these dang ghosts are ruining his new life. He hammers away at the wall over and over, making many more holes and pretty much destroying the whole thing in frustration. Still unwilling to give up on his dream, he goes to Mark with hopes of moving to a new house. He is happy to help, but is curious to know specific problems that they're having with the property. Bull rambles about rats and bugs, making them sick, and is adamant that they have to move. Mark gets real with him. If he really does have to move, it will raise a lot of questions from the organization, and they will ask why they are not adapting. Something so important to Bull, who argues that they are fitting in. Regardless, Mark is still supportive, but there will have to be an inquiry into his house before he can move. At home alone, Rial continues to develop her relationship with the creature in the wall, Naya reaching her hand out, dropping her necklace for her on the ground. And just like her, behind the now many holes in the wall, the faces of spirits occupies each one. It's a lot of ghosts. Bull gets back just in time for the inspection, getting shit from the neighbor on the way in, caustically telling him they're gonna kick them out anyway, so why not just leave, as Mark and another man roll up. They see the state of the place, deadpanning those must be some pretty big rats. He has no choice now but to report this, but Bull says that he can fix it, determined to not go back, reminding him of their talk of being the good ones, repeating that he's not going back. Mark bends and decides to only give him a warning, but not really helping their case, Rial comes barging in asking if he told them about the witch haunting the place. They're immediately confused, but she doubles down about how there's a great beast in the house that followed them here, and how he's been chasing it all night with a hammer. And familiar with magic herself, knows that this house is filled with ghosts. Well, thanks to that, they're definitely gonna get written up. So long, England, to Bull's disappointment. But Rial is disgusted by his attitude and how he idolizes the locals, begging and then thanking them for pieces of unseasoned scraps. And she at this point wants to go back after all this. He naturally brings up how this is their home and reminds her what they went through to get here. She's unwavering, saying she's leaving with or without him. To prevent this from happening, he takes drastic measures with his mighty hammer, smashing all the locks and handles in the house, pretty much barricading them inside with no way out, and reaches out to the spirits. Lighting a candle in the living room, he commands them, "This time you speak to me." But not much happens as time passes into the night, still sitting there and waiting, looking sleepy, and Bull closes his eyes. He opens his eyes, now enshrouded in darkness, the candle becoming a campfire in a black void. "Your life is not yours," the creature whispers, "you stole it." He asks again to pay what he owes, seething, "You are mine now," telling Bull he wants his life in exchange for Naya. He pulls out a knife, telling him to open his flesh, his body for hers. Bull is still unafraid, wondering why the spirit doesn't come for him itself, but when putting a hand in the fire, it has no effect. Realizing that it can't physically interact with him, he chuckles, "You're nothing but a bag of tricks," welcoming it to make itself at home. But the Apeth shows off its own powers, reminding him of his past, thunder crashing, and now back on the tumultuous seas. Bull breaks down and tries to cover his eyes, but more arms manifest and keep pulling his hands away. He tries to remind himself that they're just pictures that can't hurt him, a squid then crawling out of Naya's mouth, all just to torture him, causing Bull to scream. This is all kind of a mental fantasy, as Rial finds him sitting on the couch in a daze. She seizes the opportunity to escape, and just about to get away, he pulls her back in, ordering her to stay in the house. She gets him in the leg with a screwdriver and blocks him in a room with a broom, certainly believing the spirit's prophecy of being wary of Bull now, seeing just how unwilling he is to give up on his dream. She climbs out the window, running full sprint out of there, but she too has her own role in the past to play, suddenly finding herself back in what looks like a school in their home country. A woman comes out and recognizes her, going for a big hug, an overwhelmed Rial saying she can't believe that she's here. She invites her inside, hearing children singing and ululating, going around the room and getting warm embraces from the whole group. Knowing this is a dream, she asks where her daughter is. The lady looks around in confusion and asks, "Who?" They start chanting again, growing louder as Bull appears, outside searching for her. She comes out from hiding in a cupboard, listening at the window and hearing gunfire. He comes to comfort her, saying it's okay, he's here. Her looking a bit shell-shocked, staring at something, and takes her hand escorting her away, seeing what she was so frightened of, a pile of bodies stacked in the corner. Some guys walk by carrying stuff, then a guy is seen carrying a gun, and finally there's a dude on fire, the couple hiding up on the roof. They walk through the field seeing others in the distance, along with flashes of gunfire. They walk until the next day, coming to a town area, hurrying to join a bus out of there. They're told they only have space for more children, and Bull thinks quickly, seeing Naya screaming for her mom in a panic, and grabs her, which allows him to get on board. Oh well, that clarifies a lot. This is obviously the same escape sequence from their war-torn village from the beginning, but we are now being presented the full context. Naya was in fact not their child, but just a random stranger that he, well, basically kidnapped in order to get on the bus to save their own asses, which paints their whole journey in a very different light. And it's really hammered home when the bus drives off and Naya's real mom is futilely chasing after it to get to her daughter. Yikes, well that's pretty heartbreaking. And now we understand the whole scenario here. It was guilt that they were feeling over Naya's death that they have been struggling to come to terms with. For the most part, Bull has been outright avoiding it and focusing entirely on his new life, believing that they are good people, and that is understandable, while Rial has come to understand the necessity of confronting this past. And through the Apeth is hoping to reach some kind of deal to bring Naya back. Whether that would actually work or not is up for debate. Regardless, this is the real reason that the Night Witch has become attached to them. We continue through their track as laid out in the beginning. Rial holds Naya close and promises to protect her, which we know didn't happen. After the engine dies, everyone is out in the water, and another boat of what must be English sailors save who they can from drowning, not including Naya, seeing her floating motionless amongst the waves. Also seeing that many people died that same night, not just Naya. The creature growls that it can bring her back, motioning to the knife. Sever his flesh, it whispers, asking for his body in exchange for Naya. Back from their dream vision, things start rattling in the house. The big knife still out on the counter. She goes to the faucet, and when she turns back, Bull's got it and is deeply gashed into his arm. Bull saying that this is what it wants and that it will come for him now, sacrificing himself for her for being essentially responsible for her death. I should have tried harder to save her, he laments. He mentions that he can see all the spirits, now again understanding that they are also victims from the boat, considering what that makes them. Maybe not good people after all, sorry Bull. There's some low chanting indicating the Apeth is coming, and a spot on the tile cracks, exploding open, revealing a sand-filled hole. The witch emerges and gets right up in Bull's face with its piercing, glowing eyes, and growls, "You are mine." The creature digs into his arm wound, getting pretty deep in there, bud. You-wee! Naya appears and takes Rial's hand, flashing her back once more to the women at the school. She tells the women that she has to say goodbye now and is going home. She lets go of the child's hand, the witch still busy with Bull, and Rial surprises it from behind and slices its throat. Oh wow, I didn't even realize that was an option. Good one, Rial. This moment is crucial to her character's journey. She's consistently felt out of place, even back in Sudan, and in England was just kind of reluctantly going along with her husband's wishes, but in this moment, she makes the drastic choice to squelch the Apeth, proving this is now her home, no matter what, and bringing the couple closer together than ever. Mark and his boys come for another check-in later, a rug covering the hole in the ground and the holes in the walls now sealed up. Mark nods, noting that they seem well, asking if their witch is still around. He casually says, nah, that Rial killed it, Mark smirking in response. Well, what about the rats? Bull admitting that he might have blown that out of proportion. And finally, what about the girl? He looks away, longingly telling him that your ghosts follow you. They never leave, they live with you. When he let them in, he could then face himself. This is our home, Rial definitively states, unwavering in their commitment to staying here in their new life despite all those pesky ghosts in the walls. The idea tying back into the whole concept of the Apeth story from Rial, and how the man, ultimately a good man, was still willing to do anything for his own success and to get his own home. The same goes for the couple. We can't really blame them for wanting to do anything within their power to leave their dangerous country, but regardless, they crossed a line when taking Naya. That was bad enough, but then their actions led to her tragic death. Her blood is on their hands. Yet for much of the story, the couple, and especially Bull, are kind of refusing to acknowledge what happened and their role in it, convinced that ultimately they are good people. And it's only by confronting and accepting what they did that they are able to finally move forward in their lives. Yet as they say, symbolically the ghosts are still there and will never go away, and will live with them as they say. They have accepted this and will always remember the many deaths that it took just to even get them to the UK in the first place, which turns out to kind of be the whole point of their characters' journeys. My house. With that, we've reached the conclusion of this ending explained on his house. Whose house? His house. Sorry about that. Been in my head the entire time I'm making this video. That was quite an impressive for co-writer and director Remy Weeks, featuring a strong story and visuals that melded together quite nicely to create a very unique and intriguing experience overall. And I'm definitely excited to see what he's got coming on the horizon after his breakout hit here. What did you guys think of his house and its ending? What are some of your favorite Netflix original horror flicks? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.